You're still unproductive because most of what you've been told about productivity is a lie. Every hack, app, and template you've ever used has been built to entertain you, not truly make you more productive. They're mere surface solutions to a root level problem. Think about it. When would the Pomodoro technique change how you show up when everything is on the line? Exactly. Never. Those kinds of tools can't fix the real problem, because the problem is deeper than not knowing how to manage your time. The real problem that causes a lack of productivity is that your brain isn't trained to handle friction. So it avoids it. It loops, it stalls, it gets stuck. And until you rewire that, no productivity hack will save you. And I'm about to prove it to you. I'm Leo Castillo, founder of Selfmastered. For the past 7 years, I've worked with 350 plus founders who had already tried every productivity system under the sun. And what I realized is that the most productive founders don't use many tools. In fact, they use very few tools, but they have a fundamentally different brain wiring. Let me show you what I mean. I know that hacks are alluring. They feel incredible for about a week. Pomodoro technique feels like structure, but it teaches your brain to avoid deep work. Notion dashboard gives you false clarity because it drowns you in complexity. And productivity YouTube, instant dopamine, but zero behavior change. Those approaches can't really help you. Using them is like organizing the cockpit of a plane you're too scared to fly. They make you better at avoiding what matters. Yet, you're still being sold that they're the solution. But what is really happening is that every time you try a new thing, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. It feels like progress, but just procrastination in disguise. You get addicted to the feeling of solving the solution, not actually solving it. And every failed system doesn't just waste your time, it erodes your belief that you can change. It reinforces the neural pathway that says, I'm not disciplined enough. And that's exactly what they want you, because confused, frustrated people buy more product. The truth is, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, nor is your brain, but you are certainly miswired. In other words, your automatic mental defaults aren't well seated for being productive in today's day and age, because there's friction between what you want to do and what you subconsciously feel you can do. That's why you get hijacked in a loop that looks like this when facing a hard task. You hit resistance, you procrastinate, you avoid it, and you get distracted. That is not a time management issue. It's a mental management problem. And these days, we know exactly what's going on the brain level causing it. When dealing with a hard task, your limbic system, which evolved for survival, interprets it as a threat and activates the fear center of the brain. That triggers step 2, a stress response, cortisol and norepinephrine, with step 3 leads to a cognitive shutdown. Your prefrontal cortex, needed for complex work, shuts down. So you can't physically focus on what matters. And the worst part is that you just don't feel to execute. You start blaming yourself. So you jump into another app or another guru or another system. You spiral into shame and tool hoping, each failure widening the trust gap, the distance between who you are and who you know you could be. And if you repeat that cycle long enough, you stop believing you can change. That is not burnout. That is learned helplessness, a psychological death spiral that quietly kills your potential. Let me give you an example. I worked with a founder once, let's call him Marcus, who had 17 productivity apps on his phone. To-do list, calendar, Notion, Slack, 17 of them. Seriously, we counted. He was spending more time managing his productivity and moving things around from Obsidian to Rome research to whatever than actually being productive. And when we met, he told me something that nearly broke my heart. He said, I'm starting to think I'm just not capable of being consistent. And this guy had built a 6-figure business, so he was obviously very smart, but he'd grown to confuse the symptom, inconsistent execution, with the cause, untrained neural pathways. And glad that he found us because I showed him the truth. The productivity isn't about planning. It's about moving without friction between intention and action. If that loop is broken, no tool in the world can help. And every elite performer you admire has one thing in common. Their brain has been trained to move through resistance automatically. Kobe Bryant, Elon Musk, Rafael Nadal, you name him. They don't waste time negotiating with discomfort. They've rewired their execution defaults to lean into that discomfort and get the best out of it. Meanwhile, 99% of founders try to out-hustle their mental resistance, like tapping over a cracked windshield and hitting the highway. Sooner or later, it will shatter. That's why at SEMaster, we don't manage your time. We don't give you hacks or apps, and we couldn't care less at what time you wake up. What we do is we retrain your brain to execute with scientific precision. Our methodology combines neuroscience, behavioral design, and actual systems that at the root do three things. The first thing is to elevate your self-awareness. Train your attention to the subconscious loop that sabotage in real time. 2 is to rewire your blind spot. Install specific performance systems that optimize you spiritually, mentally, physically, and executive-wise. And finally, run those systems until they become your identity. So you start executing effortlessly. This is not general self-development or productivity. This is serious performance training. And we've helped hundreds of folks since 2017. And on average, they tripled their output in about 4 to 5 weeks. Stress is typically gone, focus shoots up, and business finally scales because the operator is actually scaling. We don't give them better tools. We rewire their mind so they can execute more effectively. And this is what we did with Marcus, the app collector, as I like to call him. We didn't give him a new productivity system. We rewired his relationship with productivity systems. Within 6 weeks, he was using just 3 tools: calendar for time blocking, notes app for capture, and our own SEMaster dashboard to track his results. But most importantly, he was executing consistently for the first time in years. His revenue, I think, doubled within 3 months. Not because he found the perfect app, but because he trained his brain to execute regardless of the tool. And this result is pretty much guaranteed across the board because of something most people still ignore, that you can rewire your brain. It is plastic, but it requires deliberate training, not just willpower. You wouldn't expect to build muscle by thinking about exercise, right? Why would you expect to build execution capacity by thinking about productivity? Elite athletes don't just practice their sport. They train the nervous system to perform every single day, even under pressure. They practice until the response becomes automatic. And from now you have 2 options. One is to keep chasing hacks, keep stacking tools, keep wondering why you're not as consistent and productive as you could be. Or get rewired. Train your brain to override resistance. Execute daily with certainty. Become the version of yourself that scales because your performance is locked in. The real solution is never to do more, but removing from what's blocking you from doing what matters. Every day you choose path A of staying the same, you are strengthening the neural pathways of avoidance. But if you choose path B, you are going to rewire the brain for excellence, for automatic execution, for consistent elite decision making. So if you're tired of playing surface game and you really want to solve the root cause of your productivity and execution struggles, finally, book a decoding session with us. We'll audit your current patterns, pinpoint where resistance lives, and show you how to eliminate for good, depending on the specific type of resistance and mental friction that we uncover. And this is not about learning productivity tips. It's about fundamentally rewiring how your brain approaches work. If you're ready for this level of transformation, this can be the decision that changes it all for you. The question here is not whether you're capable of elite execution. The question is whether you're willing to actually rewire your brain for it. Whenever you're ready, see you on the call.